Hello, everybody, and welcome to 3D6 Charge, a podcast about competitive Warhammer 40k, the state of the game and community news. We are streaming live on Twitch at twitch/3D6Charge every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I am your host, Chris Vo, and joining me tonight is Benjamin Rubenstein.
Hey, everyone.
And Jack Rocchio.
Hello there.
Right, so in terms of competitive news, the season's over. Richard Siegler won everything.
Actually, Richard Siegler only won 6 events. He only played 6 events, and that means he wins everything. This is the most precision win of the ITC season we've ever seen, and ever will see, because it's actually not possible to win it more precisely than he won it. He played exactly the number of events that you are allowed to submit for your top score. All 6 of the events counted for him. He did well enough between those 6 events to get the top slot in the ITC, which is a completely wild achievement. So congratulations, for Richard. That's amazing. Does it again.
And you did it with AdMech, and a lot of people predicted there weren't going to be any AdMech in the top 8 post-data slate.
Yeah, AdMech are just like, this is always something, man. That book is so deep, and he found it in raw stalkers and artillery tanks in Mars.
Yep, he did. Beyond that, we also had Chapter Approved dropped this past weekend, so looking forward to events that I'm going to. First event of the new season this upcoming weekend. This is a GT, the Captain Con GT in Warwick, Rhode Island. They'll be using the new missions and points. I'm very excited for it. I
just want to jump in real quick to say that LVO was great, but we're not going to talk about it too much just because
there's a lot of Tau.
It's not just like the news. Well, that is a lot. We're talking about Tau this week. A lot of Tau to talk about, but also the missions are significantly different. There's a bunch of point changes that are going into effect. Like, yeah, there are some lessons to learn about the meta from what we saw at LVO. But also, a lot of the things that were viable at LVO are not going to be viable now, in terms of both points and missions changing. So I'll be very curious to see where things land, specifically Custodians, which way overperformed our initial review of them. But keep in mind, our initial review of them was with the new missions set, which they are a lot worse at than the old mission set. So there's a real chance that with the new missions, they're definitely worse on the new missions, but I was not expecting to see the number of custodians in top 8 that I did before. So there's a chance that they're still just like top tier competitors, which would be pretty neat. But yeah, sorry, Chris, you were just talking about Captain Con?
Yeah, Captain Con. Yeah, last time we went there, Ben, you took first and I took 4.
Yeah. Although we never played each other, right? I think you dodged me.
No, I definitely dodged.
Okay. I was playing Iron Hands at that one.
Oh, another tower. That was another flavor. That was right after full Iron Hands, like Reign of Terror.
Yeah, because Tower was just not good during that time period. And they haven't been good since then. Until today. So, without further
exciting
ado,
time to be a Tau player.
Shall we get into it?
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right.
What's new with Tau?
Before we start, I just want to introduce Jack a little bit. Jack's been a friend of mine for quite some time. Not usually. Everything is falling apart over on land.
Disaster.
I'll figure that out later. We have anyway. Everything is terrible here. My screen just like fell down on me. All right, whatever. So Jack is a friend of mine who's been a casual player for a long time. And he is, while not necessarily a competitive player, someone who's always been a lover of Tau, and he does have some.
I've been playing Tau as far back as 5th edition.
Yeah. And on top of that, he has really been devouring the new Codex with me. We've been bouncing a lot of ideas off of each other. So we are both pretty excited about this book. We see different things from it. I wanted to bring him on because he saw some very different things in this book than I did, and things that I think are very strong. And I want him to present some of those ideas here. And also, as someone who's very knowledgeable about Tau, he can sort of also help us have more than one voice, just like ranking about the book the entire time.
Yeah, it's always good to have like a diverse like set of like backgrounds and perceptions, because there's plenty of times where like Ben, you and I might look at a book, looking at purely at the lens of a competitive player. We're just, I know like when I look at a new book, I'm looking for what's a janky ass combo that I can like take 3 of, whereas a more fluff narrative casual player, if you will, might be like, hey, what can I do? Like, I really like Kroot. How can I make Kroot work? That sort of perspective. They're trying to forge an army rather than just, I can't figure out what I'm trying to say here. Like, just spam a thing, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I will do my best not to drag the talk down with, oh, well, and back in my day, Tau were like this, and now they changed it.
Wait, hold on, Jack. Let me ask you, how many Devilfish do you started in 5th edition?
I don't own enough. So the answer is 3. I have 3 Devilfish, and I'm going to need to upgrade that collection as well as the number of Hammerheads and Skyrays at my disposal. I played a game against Kevin yesterday using what would be a very old style Tau list, I would say, and it performed reasonably well. I made some mistakes, but I was definitely seeing the new power in this Codex.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the best place to start talking about Tau is to start at the septs and kind of move down from there. Now, usually when we talk about factions, right? Every faction's got a warlord trait, a relic, and their actual like faction trait, and then a specific stratagem. There's a couple of notes to make about the Tau stuff in regards to that. I think the biggest one is that of the 6 generic warlord traits for Tau, 5 of them are A pluses. Like, I actually want to bring 5 warlord traits in every list I build. And as such, Seps having good warlord traits is just a lot less attractive for them because, like, yeah, it's a good warlord trait, but like, I could have pointed you at 5 warlord traits I already wanted to take out of this book without having a 7th one on that list. So having the 7th one on the list doesn't like really bring my faction up that much as it would have in other books like GSC, where like the generic warlord traits were like kind of medium. I didn't really want to bring extras, so factions with good warlord traits were like actually really bringing something to the table. Where are you on that, Jack?
So I'm pretty much in the same boat insofar as looking at all the warlord traits and deeming them good. I think that all of the individual sept warlord traits are also very good. I really have my eye on the Fireside Enclave warlord trait. It's very niche, but it is very powerful in the situations where it is usable.
Yeah, let's start with Fireside Enclaves, because Fireside Enclaves is the most different.
Yes,
and they're worth talking about.
If we're talking about steps as a whole, I think when you're looking at building a Tau list, it is important to note that you kind of have like 2 different categories, I think. You have like your normal Tau list, and then you have your Fireside Enclaves lists.
Yeah, I think Fireside Enclave lists are just going to look very, very different from a lot of other factions. All right, so let's start off with their faction trait. So their faction trait, they kept the ability to count units as having a marker light when they're within 12. However, we should note that the marker light ability is very different. There's no more, you get 5 marker lights to get a bonus to hit, and there's some rerolls in there. It's now just, every time you shoot at a unit, if they have a marker light token, you must take it off of them, and you get +1 to hit.
Yes, this is much more like the old marker light system, where it's just, you need to get any number of marker lights on the target that you want to shoot at, and then you're good.
Yep, so Fireside Enclaves, if they are within a foot of their target, they always treat their target as having a marker light token on. Now, this does mean, as of now, they still need to pick that token off of them. So you want to shoot with your things that are more than 12 away first. But this is functionally +1 to hit within a foot of your target. And that's a pretty good place to be starting your sept. In addition, every time a unit with this trait is selected to shoot or fight, you can reroll 1 wound roll when resolving the attack. Free rerolls on your units, also good.
Always
also
good.
very good. Jack, want to run us through the Warlord trait?
Sure. So the Warlord trait for Fireside Enclaves. Each time this Warlord makes an attack, on an unmodified wound roll of 6, you improve the AP of that attack by 3. And your opponent cannot use any rules that negate damage that you deal to them. This would be Gazgul type effects. This would be Feel No Pains, but not things such as Dreadnought's Duty Eternal.
Yeah. This is really important for Tau, because there's lots of things in the game that say like, you can't do more than X wounds to me per turn, per phase rather. And then Tau oftentimes are like, so the shooting phase you lose 3, and that's it. I'm never killing you.
There are many more ways to deal 3 wounds in the fight phase now. I do think there's a melee Tau list out there, and I'm eager to find it.
I agree.
But as a rule, Tau would not be able to kill those sorts of targets in one go.
But on the other hand,
can deal damage in the movement phase, but it's very rare.
Yeah, but on the other hand, a commander with 4 fusion blasters and this Warlord trait can just one-shot a Satan by himself, just like the Satan dies. And he actually dies on average, which is...
That's fucking wild.
Really good. Yeah, it's just like, you just look at the Satan, and it goes away. And this is very important for a couple different reasons. So, this is... But like I said, there's 5 good Warlord traits. But this one is going to be very meta dependent. If Satan and Gaz and things like that start really coming around, like this is the place to look. The relic is a Deny the Witch relic. Relics are a place where things do get a little more interesting for me. There's like 2 relics that I kind of want to bring in a lot of lists, and you could convince me not to bring some of them. So like Sept relics are actually interesting, and Deny the Witch at +1 is not the worst place to spend a relic, just because like this faction has no psychic defense. And then Jack, wanna tell us about their stratagem, because their stratagem is...
I will absolutely tell you about
their
the stratagem.
Is extreme.
Okay, so the stratagem's name is Drop Zone Clear, and basically what it does is when you drop in a crisis unit out of Deep Strike, you point at it and you go, okay, this unit is going to reroll all hits and it's going to reroll all wounds. If it's, I believe, 4 or less suits, it costs 2 CP. If it's more than that, it costs 3.
Yeah, it's 4 rules to hit and wound for a crisis suit unit, and crisis suit units can be kitted out with some pretty extreme weaponry, from piles of burst cannons to anti-tank stuff like fusion rifles and the new improved plasma, which is strength 8, AP 4, 3 damage at 30 inches.
It's worth noting that there is a generic stratagem for crisis suits to reroll all hits when they drop in, so you can kind of double dip on this effect and have a very strong Deep Strike.
Yep, for sure. You can definitely have a turn where you put like 10 crisis suits on the table, you point at the ones with high strength and go, these guys are rerolling hits. And then you point at the guys with a bunch of burst cannons and flamers and you go, these guys are rolling hits and wounds. And then kind of just go nuts as you do a really significant hammer blow to your opponent.
Disgusting.
Overall, Fireside Enclaves is very fast. They're interested in getting into your opponent's face. They want to play the entire game from 12 inches away from your opponent.
It's very aggressive.
They are very happy about the rules that let battle suits shoot into melee. And they are also pretty excited about the fact that it is now possible to have multiple commanders other than Farsight be good at melee. And by multiple, I mean 2. I also strongly suspect that we are going to be getting a Fireside Enclaves supplement at some point in our near future. So that'll kind of bring them to look. They'll bring them back to us. Yep. All right, let's talk about the other steps. We could talk about the other ones quite a bit more quickly. I think that Farsight's the most complicated. Viorla Sept, to me...
Quickly, before we move on, do we want to mention the detachment restrictions for Fireside Enclaves?
Oh, yeah, they literally build their list differently. It's worth talking about. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. All right, so Fireside Enclaves cannot take any ethereals, which is important because ethereals have, I think, a good amount of buffs that you would like on your table, but in exchange, they can take 2 commanders in every detachment instead of 1.
Yeah, overall, I actually think this means like their detachments aren't any more powerful than other factions, which in the 8th edition Codex, ethereals were kind of dinky and commanders were insane, so this ability was amazing. Now ethereals grant really spectacular buffs, so losing out on your ethereal slot for an extra commander slot, I think ends up being kind of a wash. It's going to definitely push you towards lists that are less interested in ethereal buffs, but it is an interesting change.
Again, it plays into Farsight's aggressive nature.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we got Viola Sept. Their Sept trait is that you move 2 extra inches on your first turn if you start in your turn in your deployment zone, and you can reroll advanced and charge rolls. Rerolling charge rolls as a faction trait is kind of wild, but you're not good at melee. So
do these Sept traits apply to auxiliaries?
They do not.
They do not.
With one exception, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
Their Warlord trait is almost a copy paste of a relic that already exists for any generic Tau faction, so it's not good. Their relic is yet another version of roll some dice, maybe you do some mortal wounds around a character. Again, not great. Their stratagem, though, is Wrath of Mars, which is kind of cool, except that it has more restrictions than Wrath of Mars has ever had in its life ever. Which is, like, again, Wrath of Mars is, like, nuts as a stratagem, right? Do 6 mortal wounds when you shoot, functionally. But now it has to be the closest target. Doesn't work for drones. I just don't think this gets there. Cicaya Sept, on the other hand, has some interesting going on. You are dense cover out of 18 for vehicles and out of 12 for infantry. And you don't take the penalty for shooting into melee with vehicles and battlesuits with heavy weapons. They have, again, it's a Warlord trait, so there's a bunch of good ones in the book, but this is the best Warlord trait in the book. It is the Cicaya Sept one, which is in your command phase. Just pick a Cicaya Sept unit within 9. Doesn't have to be core, just a unit. That unit gains obsec until your next command phase.
And this is significant because all the other ones are core restricted.
Yeah, this
sometimes might be more restricted than that.
Yeah, this is the only way to get obsec on something that is not a crisis suit or a troops choice. And like Tau have a bunch of big gunboats that like move like 15 to 18 inches a turn. Riptides can legitimately move 20 inches in a turn, 20 even more if you spike the dice. It's 12 plus 3d6.
The maximum is what, 30?
Yeah, if you roll all 6s, they would go 30, but that's unlikely.
So that's functionally the equivalent of like High Fleet Leviathan.
Yeah, well, so out of Forge World, Yavaras literally can go 30 inches, so you can literally just harpy it up. Now, it's a 300-point harpy, but like, still. Their relic is a fight last relic, which is interesting, but not good. And their stratagem is 1 CP, pick a unit, your entire army pretends they don't have any kind of cover, which is, again, really good because Tau hate -1 to hit because they all hit on 4s, and now you can just like not have to worry about that.
Also very notable because the marker light effect to ignore cover is now gone.
Yes, yeah. Tau have way fewer ways to ignore cover. Although they only ever ignore dense with a stratagem, and that stratagem now is locked to Cicaya Sept. So Cicaya, again, interesting. I don't think it's quite getting there, but it wouldn't shock me to see Cicaya Sept things like do stuff. All right, Chris, you asked about auxiliaries. So Delith Sept. The first bullet point of their trait is one of the like most aggressively powerful ones I've ever seen. Whenever a ranged attack is made against an infantry unit with this trait, if the attacker is not within engagement range of you, you are considered to have the benefits of light cover. So,
not even like the outside of 12 or 18.
Sorry, go ahead.
So it's not even like the Alpha Legion Raven Guard type stuff where you got to be like outside of 12 or 18.
No. If you're not in their face, they get cover.
If you're not touching me, I have light cover. This is very significant in an army where a bunch of the battle suits, including crisis suits and broadsides, gains the infantry keyword. So Delith broadsides have 1-up armor, just all the time in the open.
And this provides great long-range fire support for the next bullet point.
Yep. If you pick a tactical philosophy, which is Manka Kuyan, we'll get to more of that later, but basically it's going to be you can advance and shoot as though you're standing still, or turns 3, 4, and 5, you can fall back and shoot, and there's some other benefits too. Your auxiliaries gain the bonus of your tactical philosophy. Auxiliaries being Kroot, Vespid.
That's it.
It's Kroot and Vespid. That's it.
Kroot and Vespid, man. There's more in the lore, but we only have models for 2. I keep forgetting that. Kroot, Vespid. Someday we'll get the Psyker race, which canonically exists. Come on, GGL, do it, you cowards.
It's funny, waiting to be printed. There's a full list. Moving on, Warlord trait. Unifying Influence, a friendly Daleth auxiliary is within 6 of the Warlord, add 1 to the leadership. It's kind of important. Auxiliaries don't have great leadership.
More interestingly, they also lose the Tau auxiliary keyword for the purposes of interacting with marker lights, which basically just means they can use marker lights. All of this is most interesting on Vespid, who are 2 shots at strength 5, AP 3/2 damage. And now they move 12 inches, and now if that unit can like advance and shoot and get +1 hit from marker lights, like they're hitting pretty hard.
Yeah, somebody at GW really likes Vespid because they just keep getting stronger every codex.
Yeah, and if they're going to see play, they're going to see play into Lith, where they can move like 16 inches and just keep shooting.
Yes.
The Warlord Trait in the system are like not super worth talking about. All right. Boar concept. This is the set that broke the internet. So, +4 inches to all of your guns. This is great. Tau Flamers are aggressively pointed and also the best thing you can put on crisis suits versus a lot of targets. They're D6 +2 attacks instead of the normal D6 that everyone else gets. And pushing those to 16 is like kind of gasoline. The other half of the subtenet is that guns of strength 7 or less that target vehicles or battle suits lose 1 strength if you're firing into a Borcon vehicle or battle suit. Which makes some really interesting breakpoints on like strength 4 guns in your Riptides, wound on 6s, strength 5 guns into crisis suits, wound on 5s, las guns into crisis suits, wound on 6s.
It just makes infantry firepower so much less effective against battle suits and vehicles, just so much less.
Yeah, there's a lot of
much like the Maliceptor strat in Tyranids. A lot of times this is effectively -1 to wound.
Yeah. The Warlord Trait is another good one. You don't have to put it on a commander, but man, you're putting it on a commander. Improve all of your armor penetration characteristics by 1, and unmodified wound rolls of 6, inflict 1 mortal wound up to 3 per turn. Sorry, 3 per phase.
Extra mortal output. That seems pretty easy to get that extra 3.
Yeah, this is like and there's a lot. There's so many. We could do an actual 2-hour episode on how can you build commanders. Jack and I have talked ad nauseum about different ways you can put commanders together.
There's so many.
But of note, there's a build that's like fairly cheap that has 30 attacks per turn, and you're just going to slap this Warlord Trait on that build. Alternatively, you could do 4d6 attacks with blast that ignore line of sight and slap this Warlord Trait on that build, and that's also kind of exciting. Their unique relic is very good. It's a commander. You pick 2 of his weapons. Whenever they're firing within half range, they get +1 to wounds. Yeah, and with the +4 inches to range, this pushes some of the guns to like truly absurd levels. And then we have the stratagem, which
the stratagem that cracked the internet in half.
Oh god! All right, well, run us through this one, Jack.
All right, so it's 2 CP stratagem. You pick a Borcon unit, and you pick 1 weapon. I'm sorry, you pick 1 Borcon model, and you pick 1 weapon on that model. Invulnerable saves can't be taken against that weapon.
Yeah.
This is any unit. This is any weapon.
So this is probably like going on like a rail rifle broadside, right?
No, this is going on the Storm Surge all day long.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think all Borcon lists start with 1 Storm Surge, and then they figure themselves out from there.
Yeah.
I
also like this. This is a me pick. I really like this stratagem on the alternating fusion blaster, which is a meltagun that draws a line. It's Lantern, if you're familiar with Mortarion. You draw a line, you hit everything, the line goes over.
But so what is it about the Storm Surge that makes this stratagem like an easy?
The Storm Surge's main cannon is 2 shots. It's 24 inches, 2 shots, strength 16, AP 4, flat 12 damage. So if you're having issues with Crusher Stampedes, just every turn you're like 2 CP, pick that one up. 2 CP, pick that one up. On top of that, while it's not currently a huge thing in the meta, in terms of like Drakari hordes or demonic hordes, the Storm Surge's like chest missiles is 1 gun that's 4d6 attacks with blast at 5 neg 1/1. Which like with this strat, like if you're like, oh, my opponent put 30 pink horrors in front of me, you're like, all right, 24 attacks, and you can't make invulns against any of them.
And it's probably rerolling hits.
And it's probably rerolling all of its hit rolls because of its anchors, and it Or alternatively, it's a run up into their face, so it's up to AP2, so that Drakari infantry are also losing stuff. Yeah, like it's. I think the Storm Surge is just like the place where a lot of BoardCon lists start. But if you're not like, you could convince me that BoardCon lists don't start there too. Like their Warlord Trait is good, their Sept Tenant is incredible. Like it might just be a bunch of Crisis suits with flamers, and then you have like, yeah, it could be Railgun Broadsides, it could be oh goodness, Skyrays. Like there's just a lot of guns that are like something between 2 and 4 shots with unbelievable amounts of AP and damage in this book. And experimental weaponry can really break some of those. It's going to be very meta dependent.
And it's worthy to note that the BoardCon tenet is not restricted to not work on relics and prototype systems.
Yes, a lot of these range increasers like don't work on those, and the BoardCon concept one does. It's going to be very meta dependent. Like if Imperial Knights and Chaos Knight books come out and those books are just like busted, like I would not be shocked if like triple BoardCon Storm Surge is just like a list that sees play. They are durable enough that they can actually take some pretty heinous hits from Knights, and they actually just crack Knights in half from their crackback. Like you don't get involved. Like, oh, you rotated Ion Shields on that one. All right, it can't make involves against me. Like 24 damage from this gun if it all hits and wounds. Now it's not likely to all hit and wound, but man, even if you just go 1 through for 12, they don't get
it's only 2 shots, and you have CP rerolls.
Yeah, and you're rerolling your hits anyway. No. All right, let's talk about the main Sept, Tau Sept. All right. Tau Sept has a Sept Tenant, but mostly what it has is named characters. But let's talk about the Sept Tenant real quick. Every time you, all right, so it's got the Argent Shroud reroll. That means when every time you shoot, you can reroll a hit or a wound, and you can make that decision on the fly. This is great. You also add 3 inches to the range of any aura abilities, and 3 inches to the range of any abilities that ask you to pick a unit in your command phase. So this is very interesting because it kind of pushes Tau Sept lists in a couple different ways. The 1 reroll means you want to go MSU. However, all of their best named characters are units that just like give a buff to a unit, which means they actually want to have big units to eat those buffs. Makes Tau Sept lists very dynamic to build because you want these like big units to like eat your buffs, and then you also want like a bunch of big guns and small units to just like be rerolling everything. Their Relic and Warlord Trait are both not worth talking about, and their stratagem is the same thing as it used to be, but now it's just cheaper, which is if an enemy unit loses a wound to a Tau Sept model in the shooting phase, you can spend 2 CP to get +1 wound against the unit for the rest of the phase.
Of note, it's core units that are getting +1 to wound against it, so it's not everything as it used to be.
Oh, I totally missed that change. All right, so it's any Tau Sept model can cause it to lose a wound, but then only core gets the bonus to wounding.
Yeah. So ideally, you want to take the wounds off with something like a Riptide or something with its big guns, and then you go in with your broadsides to finish it off.
Yeah, I actually think what's going to happen more often with this strat is that your direct fire weapons don't really need help. Like, if my railguns can see it, you're probably just killing it, and then my Riptide like takes a wound off of something behind a hill, and then all the broadsides go indirect into it with +1 wound.
That's fair.
So that's the Septs. There's a couple core rules too that's going to be kind of universal. So let's mention those. There's also Build-A-Septs. I think unlike other books that have recently come in, the Build-A-Septs just like don't get there in terms of the main Septs, which is probably fine. Build-A-Septs should probably be worse than the main Septs most of the time.
I think there are some interesting choices in there. Stuff like the BoardCon -1 strength if it's 7 or under is in there. There's also a trait that gives +1 strength on your weapons if it's fired at 12 inches or less. We can manifest heavy flamers out of nowhere. I think that's interesting.
Yeah. Like those things are neat, but like, I'd rather
a few interesting ones, but yeah, overall they're just okay.
All right, so let's talk about a couple base rules, and then we can talk about the Warlord Traits and stuff. So, base rules: Ethereals are priests now. They have a list of things they can do. On this list is give a 5-up Feeling of Pain, give out a -1 to be hit, just gain a command point. They have a very interesting one where you give an auxiliary unit +1 to wound for all their attacks. That's melee and shooting.
Recruit like this a lot.
Vespa like the shooting bonus a lot. There's also a bonus for there's a bad one that talks about morale that you don't care about because Tau don't really have morale issues. The ones that you're going to see the most often are Feeling the Pains, getting command point, -1 to be hit, and if some sort of auxiliary list manifests, the +1 to wound is kind of cool. Like, I don't know how you like get 20 crew to survive, but like if you can get 20 crew in a melee with +1 to wound, like they will just chomp on them.
I think the point is that you're bringing multiple of these big crew units.
That's fair. They don't cost that many points.
How many points is it for a squad?
I believe it's
60 for
60
10.
base, 6 per model, between 10 and 20 models in a unit. And of note, each time you bring a crew carnivore squad, you can bring a different crew unit without taking up a slot.
Yep. All right, let's talk about those warlord traits that are all just. I just want to bring all of them. Let's start off with the first one. This is the one that every other codex wishes it had. And like it's also wild because Tau abuses warlord trait more than any other codex.
Yes.
Precision of the Hunter. Every time this warlord makes an attack, reroll the hit roll and reroll the wound roll.
Do you remember quad fusion commanders? They're back.
I think like even beyond that though, like quad fusion is cool with this, but like you're kind of already hitting and wounding on, hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s. Like, how about just like a dude with a bunch of burst cannons, like 30 attacks at like strength 5 or strength 6?
Yeah. So also this.
Like rerolling all hits and wounds, like you're just actually mowing down droves of Dark Eldar infantry. Like, you want to kill some racks? This is how we kill some racks.
If you need to kill a certain kind of target, this will help you do it. Just load yourself out correctly.
Yep. Unity Devastation is back, although this time, this is the Warlord trait that all of you out there who've ever played against competitive Tau, this is the one that they used to take because it was the only one in the book that like had any text, and it's better in 4 different ways. It's a little bit worse because it's core locked, I guess, but other than that, every core unit within 6 inches makes an attack. If you roll a 6 to wound, it's an extra concentration, and this works against things you don't see. You don't have to pick one unit like you used to. It's actually just Space Marine Storm of Fire, which is what it always should have been. And for Tau, given their weight of fire, kind of exciting. There's one bad one. We're not going to worry about it. It's not even bad. It's just not as good as the other 5. Through Boldness Victory, again, in your command phase, you pick a unit within 9 inches, and then every time they roll a 6 to hit, you don't roll the wound, it just automatically wins. And then we have the 2 really interesting ones.
Yes. So these next 2 warlord traits, they pair with your chosen tactical philosophy that we mentioned earlier, but they still have effects all on their own. We have Exemplar of Calion and Exemplar of Montka. Ben, do you want to cover Calion? I know that's the one you were kind of thinking about.
Yeah, I think I'm bringing both, but so yeah, Exemplar of Calion. After both players have deployed their armies and then determine who's going first, select up to 1 stepped unit or up to 3 stepped units if you're doing Calion, and redeploy them. If you're using strategic reserves, you can put them into strategic reserves, regardless of if that's too many points and you don't spend command points on them. If they have something else on their data sheet that lets them redeploy, you can do that. If both players have redeployed things, you roll off to figure out who does it first. So it's a redeploy 1 unit or 3 if you picked Calion. Chris, how are redeploys? Oh, have you lost Chris?
I don't know how to feel about them. Like, I like that Tau have more tricks in the movement phase now because realistically, phases move things. And before in previous editions, I think they've emphasized the shooting phase too much to the point where the Tau game plan was just hang out with all your shit in a castle and then just blink away at people as they come towards you. This makes the movement shenanigans just makes it more dynamic and a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Jack, want to know with Montka?
Sure. So in your command phase, you select a sept core unit within 9 inches of the warlord until the end of your command phase. Each time a core unit in that core model in that unit makes a ranged attack against an enemy within 9 inches, 12 if you've chosen Montka as your philosophy, you can reroll the wound roll.
Yeah, so full wound rerolls for core units. I remember when this used to cost me command points and giving up my commander shooting. So yeah, let's talk about Montka and Kuyan in a little bit more detail. Beginning of the game, I believe it's after you roll off to see who's going first. You decide if you're in Montka or Kuyan. There's both base rules for Montka and Kuyan, and then also there are things like this where they get more powerful or less powerful depending on which trait you're in. Or Devilfish, which actually just like completely changes their functionality depending on which trait you're in. So the Monka ability is for turns 1, 2, and 3. Whenever a unit normal moves or advances, it is treated as stationary for your shooting phase. And then every time it makes an attack, if it's within 18 inches on turn 1, 12 within turn 2, or 9 within turn 3, and it's attacking an enemy unit within that range band that is the closest eligible target, it gains an extra armor penetration and rerolls wound rolls of 1. This is hyper aggressive. This is a ridiculous damage output boost, and it's very, very good.
Yep.
Kuyan is turns 3, 4, and 5. You are eligible to fall back and shoot in the same turn, although you're -1 to hit if you fall back. Every time you make an attack, if it's within the closest eligible unit within 12, on turn 3, your 6s double hit. On turn 4, your 5s and 6s double hit. On turn 5, your 4s, 5s, and 6s double hit. This is a much bigger damage output boost than Monka. But the biggest boost comes on turn 5. And the game's kind of over by turn 5. I'm just like not a big fan of Kuyan. I just like don't think it gets there.
Yeah, most people that I've talked to are of the opinion that Monka is the auto take one, and I think this is true most of the time. I am looking at building a list that exploits the Exemplar of Calion and the Devilfish redeploy ability to kind of just scoot a whole bunch of things off the table for free. But in general, I'm just going to want to be taking Monka.
Yeah, I also think the Monka Warlord trait, like the Calion Warlord trait is good even in Monka. Like redeploy a unit is a powerful effect.
It is.
But the Monka Warlord trait, like within 9 inches to reroll your wound rolls, like, man, that's
12 inches.
Well, it's within 9 if you're in Kuyan. If you're in the wrong philosophy, it's within 9. And like within 12 is like fairly easy to do. Within 9 is like on top of them. Now all battle suits can shoot into melee now. They are -1 to hit with heavy weapons. But this also makes like Kuyan less interesting because like before, when this first got spoiled, I was like, oh man, Kuyan's the truth. You can fall back and shoot, but like you just shoot into melee. We've already talked about Markolites where you get +1 to hit. Of note, all Crute units scout deploy, not just the carnivores anymore, it's just all of them, which is pretty excellent. Like Crute hounds are interesting.
It might be almost your entire army scout moving now.
Yep.
Depending on how you build it.
Some other big changes, drones are now attached to your units. This is a good change. Drones were busted before. So now they're part of your unit. They do not count for morale. They don't count for your toughness. They don't count for if you're large enough to bodyguard for other units. You just take saves on them like any other model in your unit. This has allowed GW to decrease the point cost on shield drones back to 12 and increase the wounds count to 2. So man, shield drones can just be the tankiest thing ever.
Tankier than Chaos Marine.
Oh yeah, tankier than Chaos Marines. It's great. T4, 2 wounds, 4 vulnerable saves. Alrighty, let's go through some unit profiles. We're obviously not going to be able to hit on all of them, so we're just going to talk about them sort of in generics. Shadow Sun is of course still the Supreme Commander. She has a Chapter Master reroll, but her Chapter Master reroll is within 12 inches because she has two different. She both being Tau Step that increases by 3, and she has a drone that increases it by 3. She also has a Captain reroll aura, which is again 12 inches. So if Shadow Sun's in your army, you don't actually need other commanders to buff things out because she's going to like give full rerolls to something. It can go on an adventure, and then like a 12-inch pie plate off of her that's like a 24-inch circle. Like that's your whole army. Your whole army is going to be. It's not challenging to have your whole army within 24 inches of each other and play a reasonable game. And on top of that,
that's
she can
the entire like width of the board, like going.
Yeah, and on top of that, when your opponent's outside of 12 inches, she's only eligible as a target if she's the closest model. So like she can kind of just like hang out in weird places and not get shot at. Farsight has a huge glow up. He hits very hard in melee now. His gun has twice as many shots, and also gains 2 strength in AP and 2 damage. So it's 2 shots at 8 neg for 3.
Farsight's plasma gun is the single most improved plasma gun in the Tau Codex.
And then in melee, he is 5 attacks at 10 neg 3/3, which is just good. Like there's actually nothing wrong with that profile.
And he also has a sweep profile now.
Yep.
At what 6 - 2 1?
Yes.
Yeah. And he makes 2 attacks instead of 1.
Yep.
You can also point at another Fireside Enclaves unit and give it +1 to hit in combat. this is not super relevant, but it is notable because a lot of the bigger battlesuits now have actual melee profiles that do damage.
Sure. There are 3 flavors of commander: Cold Stars, Crisis, and Enforcers. They each give a different buff to Crisis suits. Crisis commanders give fallback and shoot, and also ignore all hit penalties for a turn. All hit penalties. Penalties for advancing, penalties for shooting through dents, penalties that your opponent's applying to you. This is really good, and somehow the other 2 might be better. Enforcers give them OBSEC, and I don't like Crisis suits now move 10 inches and have 4 wounds each. So this is like a really fast moving brick with OBSEC. Like this is like Custodian's jet bikes that used to have OBSEC, but like still have OBSEC. Now, they're not punching things to death in melee, but their damage output is like pretty decent with all the shooting. And then Cold Stars have a unit, when they advance, they just move an extra 8 inches instead of rolling a d6. And again, that's like, all right, Crisis is moving 18 inches before they're figuring out what they can see and shoot at. That's really far. Like that's very hard to hide from. We've got Fireblades. They're basically the same. They buff Fire Warriors. Ethereals, where I talked about them, they've got the prayers, all the stuff. That's great. They also have every turn you can pick a unit, a core unit, and that unit can do actions and shoot without the action failing. This reduces your requirement to like bring action monkey units, because you can just like, broadsides are core infantry. You can just like point your broadsides and like, they're going to raise a banner and shoot at you. And it just like reduces the number of like random 5-man like auxiliary squads that I need to bring to like do actions. Especially because Fire Warriors are locked at 10-man squads now, so you can't even take 5-man Fire Warrior squads. Like it's 80 points for 10 dudes.
This is true for Fire Warrior squads. This is true for Breachers and Pathfinders. They're all locked to 10 man.
Yep, and like at first glance, that kind of sucks because you don't get the action monkey stuff. But it turns out with Ethereals, you're not losing firepower. Like your 10-man Fire Warrior squad can go raise a banner and still just like shoot at people. So it's all fine.
And with the buffs to their weapons, these units are also pretty good at shooting.
Yep. I
don't feel bad about spending 80 points on them.
Yep, for sure. So now we have, and also that's an important note. Shadowstone and all of her abilities work on any Tau unit. So she's not locked to Tau steps. She can move around to other steps without ruining.
She's locked to core though.
She's locked to core. Now, Dark Strider is Tau Sept exclusive. He's got Marker Light, which is great. The way Marker Lights work is you start the action at the beginning of your movement phase, which means you can't move unless you're a Pathfinder. So you can move, or a vehicle they can move as well,
or a drone,
At the beginning, basically, just characters with Marker Lights are bad. Everyone else can move and do it. Pathfinders are notable because they start the action at the beginning of the shooting phase, which means they don't need to start the turn on the board. So they can appear and do Marker Lights. Everything else needs to at least be on the table to start the Marker Light action. You roll for every Marker Light in the unit, you pick an enemy model, you roll a d6. On a 3-up, you put a token on that model, and then like we said, when you shoot that model, you pick the token up, you get +1. So Dark Strider's got Marker Light, so that's always nice to have. He also gives a core unit +1 to wound against an enemy unit that he could see in the command phase. So he needs to be able to see it, but man, just +1 to wound. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, no requirements. Like he sees it, +1 to wound for a core unit.
And he's doing this from 9 inches away.
Yeah, your unit needs to be 9 inches away. The enemy unit is just line of sight. It's got a couple other things on him that are fine, but yeah, mostly he's like a 60-point thing that just gives a unit +1 wound, which is incredible. Jack, wanna talk about Long Strike?
Okay, so Long Strike is the character Hammerhead, and he has this marvelous effect where he points at a friendly, what is it? It's a Hammerhead
or core
unit, and then he tells them to act as though they've used a Marker Light token.
Yeah, against all their targets.
Against all their targets, without there actually having to be a Marker Light token. Ben, I know you were very excited about the possibilities of this on a unit of broadsides with indirect fire.
Yeah, generally speaking, your indirect fire is not going to get +1 to hit, unless Long Strike just lets you pretend that you have Marker Lights behind that wall, and then you get +1 to hit. On top of that, he's a generic Hammerhead, except that he's weapon skill, ballistic skill 3 instead of ballistic skill 4, which means that when combined with Marker Lights, he's hitting on 2s. Hammerheads get a free roll to hit. He's Talcept, so he gets a free roll to hit or wound. He's just going to use it on his wound roll. He's a tank ace, so he gets +1 to wound against monsters and vehicles, and his gun strength 14, which means that he wounds everything in the game except for buildings on 2s, and hits pretty much everything on 2s, and rerolls all of his hits and wounds. The math says that gives him about a 95% chance of getting a wound through on any particular target. And it's a railgun, so it's AP.
If you're keeping up with how good railguns are now, then you'll know exactly the terror this will bring.
Yeah, it's AP 6. It does D3 plus 9 damage, and you can't make invulnerable saves against it.
Yep.
On top of that, he's not squishy. Like, he's got 14 wounds with a 3-up save. It's not like the most durable thing you can buy for 170 points, but
something. I believe this is up 1 wound from Hammerheads in the previous Codex.
Yeah, they gained 1 wound. For now, he's eligible to be bodyguarded, but my goodness, is that going to go away? Because that's not okay.
If I remember correctly, he was a viable bodyguard target in the previous Codex for the entirety of its lifespan. But now that bodyguards just block targeting entirely, that's a bit of a problem.
Yeah. In the previous Codex, bodyguards could give up wounds to when he loses wounds to like prevent him from losing damage, and that was cute. But now bodyguards can just like hang out behind a wall and make him untargetable while he deletes one thing a turn and also buff stuff. Like I was like, so right now, Long Strike is the most broken unit in the game. I actually think Long Strike is the best unit in the game right now. When the bodyguard shenanigans goes away, which it will, he will be merely good, because what he's going to do is he's going to spend most of his time hanging out behind a wall, just handing out huge bonuses to hit. And then once he feels safe enough to pop out without dying, he's going to just like start putting hammer railguns into stuff. The railguns go very far. Like, it's a 60-inch gun. He can sit pretty far away from stuff. There's not a lot of people bringing like the sort of firepower that can kill him in a shootout. Like, most things are like melta guns, and those just don't go far enough to like reach him from the ranges that he's gonna be playing at. With the exception of like Laz Chicken Walkers, and I think that the Laz Chicken Walkers can't afford to hide that long. Like, they're gonna have to come out and play, because if Broadsides get in range of them, like Broadsides can actually just kill them with indirect fire. We'll get to more on that later. We got strike teams and breacher teams. They are much improved. Extra armor penetration everywhere. The ability to advance and shoot off of Montcalm is great. The ability to come out of Devilfish after the Devilfish moves, after the Devilfish scout moves, means that a Devilfish can move 21 inches, release Fire Warriors 3 inches off of itself. Those Fire Warriors can then move 6 inches and then do an action, which means that if a Devilfish starts on your front line, Fire Warriors can do an action 30 inches from your deployment zone on turn 1.
It's Fisher Fury's back, baby. It's back in a big way.
Yeah, we like to call this technique, I'm taking Rod and you can't stop me.
Yeah. Something that Ben mentioned there that I think I should just expand upon briefly. It is a 1 CP stratagem. You pick 1 Devilfish. After it moves, it can disembark its Fire Warriors. This can be 3 Devilfish if you're in your chosen tactical philosophy, which is Monka almost all the time.
So yeah, turn 1, you can have 3 Devilfish, go 21 inches, release a bunch of dudes from them, and all those dudes can then like walk out, do actions, shoot, charge.
Does the Devilfish have the fly keyword?
Absolutely.
So
yes, they go where they please.
So this is true Fisher Fury bullshit, where you can just park the Devilfish front.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I meant it in every sense of the word.
Oh, God.
The only thing that's not back is the sheer untargetability.
Well, speaking of untargetability, though, the Devilfish can scout move 9, move 12, and they haven't advanced, so they're still eligible to charge. So, like, your Devilfish can all just kind of, like, drift into the opponent's army sideways, and, like, your opponent starts the turn, and they're just, like, in melee with 3 tanks. They're just, like, completely blocking them into their deployment zone.
Yeah, they're not super durable, but they don't exactly evaporate either.
Yeah, they're 13 wounds, T7, 3-up armor. Like, yeah, they're not going to survive the hitting phase and the combat phase, but, like, if your opponent didn't put their combat units on the front line, and a lot of like frontline combat units are like fast anti-infantry stuff. Like, you're not actually picking up a Devilfish with like a bunch of vets with chainswords.
Yeah, it's probably not happening.
Crisis suits. Crisis suits are wild. They have 3 hard points each now.
Oh, can I go back just one brief second?
Yes, go for it.
I think that at last the turrets on strike teams and breacher teams are somewhat reasonable.
I just like them on strike teams. I don't like them on breachers.
All right, I can accept that.
For some bizarre reason, the missile pod turrets are 20 points, and the SMS turret, which is just like, I'm never paying 20 points for missile pod.
I'm pretty convinced that the missile pod thing is just wrong and is going to be changed.
The SMS turrets are 10 points on strike teams, though, and that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to do mock cog, because like the first 3 turns of the game, they count as stationary, so even when you summon the smart missile system, you just can shoot with it at no penalty.
Yep.
All right, crisis teams. There are 4 wounds each now, which is real good. They come in squads of 3 to 6. They move 10. They have all sorts of mix of weapons. Flamers are better at D6 plus 2 shots. Pretty much everything that was D3 went to 2. Damage flat. Airbursting fire projectors are now up to 24 inches. D6 shots of 4-1-1 with blast, and they still ignoring line of sight. Weapons cost more points for every other copy of the weapon you already have on the suit. So you're going to see a lot less of triple weapon. You're going to see a lot more of like 3 singleton weapons. Crisis suits also now have their support slot is a 4th slot, and most of the support systems are free. So you're going to see a lot more support system like too.
Yeah, you could shove more stuff on crisis suits than ever before, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, they're going to actually see play because, like I said before, like this is the thing that all the commanders buff. So they're getting obsec, they're getting moving 18 inches. They can do actions and shoot from ethereals. They get field painters from ethereals. Shield generator is only 5 points, so like a 50 point model is a crisis suit with a ion rifle, a flamethrower, and a burst cannon, a 5 and a 4 up invulnerable save.
Do you mean a plasma rifle?
Yes, sorry, plasma rifle.
Yeah. A couple weapon changes to go over. Air bursting frags going up to 24 inches and at -1 is fantastic.
I did cover that.
Cyclic ion blasters are a little reduced from what they once were. Their wounds on yourself are now uncapped, so it's easier to blow yourself up with them. And were they always 2 damage before? Or were they D3 before?
These would be D3. Everything that was D3 went to 2, which kind of stinks. In the world of -1, I'd rather be D3.
Yeah. But the plasma rifle does a lot more damage against big targets now. Fusion blaster got upgraded to the new Melta. Flamers are extra 2 shots. It's all great.
Of note, I don't think it's super obvious from the crisis suits. I think the anti-tank guns on the crisis suits are all a lot less exciting than they used to be, only because the direct fire weapons and the rest of the Tau Codex are extreme. I don't think we can go through every. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think there's some truth to that. I think crisis suits are much more of a multi-purpose unit now than they've ever been.
Yep. All right, stealth suits. They're still your generic forward deployers. They have some decent firepower. They're fast. They're not your damage output. Like if you want damage output, take crisis. But they can certainly do some things. Ghost kills, competitively speaking, I just don't think got there. There's some cute things you can do because they're untargetable out of 18 and they can take some fairly long range weaponry. But I just don't think that weaponry gets there at 160 points. Fireside Marksman are on paper unexciting, but they are the only elite slot character that you can just jam more of your wonderful Warlord Traits and relics on. I'm going to take one in the list that I'm going to present later. And I'm doing that because I'm taking a bunch of name characters and I just wanted another Warlord Trait and another relic, and that was the only place to put it. Pathfinders are great. Marker lights are very good. There's a strat for Pathfinders where their marker lights sit on 2s and they can move after shooting them. So Pathfinders can jump marker lights, or alternatively later in the game can just go 14 inches down the table to go do a thing.
Chat's asking, are ghost kills still bad?
I wouldn't say they're bad, not at all.
Yeah, I would not use the word bad.
Having an untargetable rule is good in and of itself. Are they fantastic? Probably not. I think there's some neat shenanigans with taking Borkan ghost kills and just being untargetable forever and constantly hopping out of range.
Yep.
But it is a decent chunk of points that they're eating up.
Yeah, I don't think they're great, but they're I wouldn't use the word. I think there's some very push things in the Codex. Ghost kills are not one of those very push things, but yeah, certainly nothing wrong with them.
Yeah, I don't. There are very few bad models in this Codex now.
Pranas are neat. They kind of do the same thing they did before, just more efficient. Vespid, Crude Hounds, again, both perfectly viable. Riptides are neat. I actually think we're probably going to see them in Fireside Enclaves because they're very fast, and Fireside Enclaves want to get in people's faces. And Boar Concept because their ion cannon is a interesting option to turn off invulnerable saves. It's 8 shots at 8-3-4. which is like pretty good when you can't take invuln saves against that. But I'm pretty happy that like Riptides are like a thing you could think about. I rarely think you're going to see 3 in a list, and that's good.
Yeah, the age of the Triptide is at an end. I didn't think I would see it in my lifetime. It makes me very happy.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we got to my pet unit, Broadsides. Hang on, guys, because this is a wild ride. Missile sides are 10 points cheaper. Rail sides are the exact same point cost. They got the infantry keyword. They have 2 system slots, one of which is their secondary weapon system, which could be actually instead of a second support system if you want it to be. It's probably not going to be. They have 8 wounds now. 8. This is unreal. Both of their guns are updated. High yield missile pods are now heavy 4, but there's 2 of them. So heavy 8 at 7 -2/2. I think that this just like does not get there anymore. Heavy rail rifles are heavy 2 at 9 -4 D3 +3. Successful wounds deal mortal wounds. With range infinity.
This is something we kind of skipped over in the Pathfinders, that rail rifles and heavy rail rifles are Tao's kind of smite light. They're the source of mortal wounds now.
Yep. Chris, Broadsides of the core keyword. I can't fathom how this came to be, but they have the core keyword. Oh yeah. So commanders make the reroll ones because commanders are captains. I think we actually skipped over that, but yeah, commanders just like have the generic reroll one or a thing now, so they reroll ones. Arc can give them +1s to wound. I actually don't think that's going to happen very often because rail rifles are dumb and are strength 9 already. But like, if you need to, you could. Long strike can give them marker light tokens. They're eligible for Exemplar of Calion. Oh, sorry, Exemplar of Montca. They're eligible for a bunch of all of like the strats. On top of that, they have 2 unique support systems that only they can take. There's a support system that says you ignore all penalties for moving and shooting heavy weapons and for shooting heavy weapons into combat. This is great, but the other one's dumb. The other support system is all of your 6s to hit automatically wound. And
we told you about Shadow Sun rerolls.
Yeah. Yeah, so even when you're playing against Crusher Stampede and your smart system missile systems just like don't have good targets, you're still just like actually mowing down monsters with your 24 shots from your smart missile systems.
Disgusting.
Like you're gonna get the first unit full rerolls to hit, and they're just gonna like all the SMS into something, rolling everything that's not a 6, and then you're gonna give the rest of the squads +1 to wound with the Taos Ep strat. And then the railguns are 6 attacks at 9 -4 D3 +3. Always doing mortal wounds on successful wounds, even if you make the saves. So it's really D3 +4 with like some extra damage for like saves that you succeed.
And broadsides are coming in at a hot 95 points for rail side space.
Ha! Imagine spending 95 points on them. No, they're 90.
Oh, forgive me. Yeah, so broadsides are going to be doing a lot of heavy lifting in the new Codex.
Yeah, they'll be lifting your opponent's models right back into their carrying case. Missile sides are 110 points, which is 10 points cheaper than they used to be. But man, it's just rail sides all the time. I built 2 railguns today. I'm going to be building some more when this podcast is over. I'm going to be beating them tomorrow. Like, holy crap! I can't believe how good this unit is. And on top of that, with the way drones work, broadsides can take 6 drones in a unit, so you can still just have 6 shield drones in this squad. And which like, so now you have to dig through 12 wounds and 4 invulnerable saves before you get to the first broadside, who is infantry, so he can be in light cover now. So he's 1-up armor, and he's 8 wounds and up to a 5-up feel of pain from the ethereal. All right, we kind of already talked about hammerheads because we talked about long strike, but they exist. They are one that's a skill. I think they're a little bit worse than long strike. Or sorry, they are a lot worse than long strike. And I think that generally speaking, you're going to see like long strike and sometimes 1 hammerhead, but I like we're just not. It's not going to be the hammer apocalypse that people think it was, because instead we're all going to play Skyrays.
We have Skyrays now. Skyrays are better than they have ever been. The single biggest change to the Skyray that bumped it up, in my opinion, was the change to the Seeker missiles. They are now no longer 6 one-shots. They are now a Seeker missile rack that fires heavy D3 +1 shots. Seeker missiles are now all 9 -3 2d3 damage. They have a neat strat that lets them fire indirectly
with +1 to wound.
with +1 to wound. Skyrace also got a couple other things to help it out. It gets to make 1 free hit reroll every time it shoots. It adds 2 to hit flyers, and against flyers, it can reroll its damage rolls. It is a very, very reliable anti-flyer platform, and it's a very reliable, just generic shooting platform now.
And Tau really appreciate that too, because like you can struggle to hit things that are -1 to hit, and like the Skyray just like solves that problem for you.
Yeah. To top it all off, not only do they have the 2 sort of front guns that the Tau tanks have, so either burst cannons, gun drones, or smart missile systems, they also have 2 marker lights, which now that they always hit on 3s, hit in quotation marks on 3s, Skyray just kind of does everything that you ever need anything to do.
Yeah, this unit is incredible. Also, they're 145 points. So
they're 145 points. It's T7, 14 wounds. It moves as fast as any other Devilfish chassis. They're kind of just doing it.
Yeah, this unit's incredible. I specifically really think they're good in Tau Sept, where you are just getting like multiple rerolls on this unit that's not core, and it doesn't need a babysitter. Like it just gets these rerolls on its own.
Yeah. They also felt really good in Fireside Enclaves.
Yes, Fireside Enclaves, because they're a 12-inch flyer who can just like zoom up the table, get within 18 inches of their target, and just open up.
And the Seeker Missile Rack is not blast, so it can fire this in combat if you have to.
Yeah. Of note, though, they cannot advance and shoot their marker, so it's only 12 inches if you want. All right, the flyers are bad. The fortifications are awful. We've already talked about the Storm Surge. That's all the units. I'm gonna just hit
do we go over the Devilfish itself?
Yeah, it is exactly all right. We guess we didn't. It is a Hammerhead without the gun on top and a transport capacity of 10 dudes. It can scout move if you do Maka, and if you do Kuyan, it can fly off the edge of the table. It's good. It's very good.
It's a very solid transport for 95 points.
Yeah, as Sisters of Battle have shown over and over, transport that can scout move are good. And it scout moves further than they do and flies, and yeah, it's very good. Okay, there's a lot of stratagems, and Jack and I also each have a list we want to talk about, so I don't think we're going to quite get to all of that. But generically speaking, Tau stratagems are excellent.
They are very aggressively costed.
There's lots of things that cost 1 CP that should probably be 2. There are multiple ways to buy extra armor penetration. There's multiple ways to buy bonuses to wound or wound rerolls. There's lots of strats that interact with Fire Warriors. You can make Devilfish into captains for them. You can make the Devilfish just disembark guys after they move. The 2 most important strats in the book, though, and the strats that I think just push Tau completely over the edge are
the 2 that I think they are.
Yeah, it's the pulse grenades.
Photon grenades and repulsor impact fields. These are for
field. And they both do the same thing, just with different keywords. And they so anything with the photon grenade keyword, which is every infantry model that's not an ethereal or an auxiliary. And that's the aura battlesuit, I should say. So Fireblades, Dark Strider, Pathfinders, Fire Warriors, Breeder teams. 1 CP. Pick a unit. Sorry, when you get a charge declared against you, pay 1 CP. Subtract 2 from that charge distance and 1 from all attacks that yeunit makes for the rest of the turn. It's just -2 charge for 1 CP. There is another stratagem called Repulsor Impact Fields. 1 CP. When a charge is declared against a battlesuit unit, subtract 2 from that charge roll. Or sorry, subtract 2 from all charge rolls made against that unit for the rest of the phase.
So the important thing to take away from this is that if you're charging a Tau army, you're doing it at -2.
Yeah, every unit that's not a vehicle, that's not a like hover vehicle. The battlesuit vehicles have this too.
Yeah, as somebody who's played the Inexorable Plague Company and Death Guard, where their company stratagem is that -2 inches to charge, like that can break the back of assault heavy army, especially when coming out of deep.
Yeah, especially with some of like the one on vehicle, the one on battlesuits that just like is for the whole phase. Like it's not tricky to set it up with these units. Like broadsides are like 9-man squads when you include the drones, and the drones are part of the squad, so they're eligible for the strat. That like you set it up so like only 1 broadside unit's in front of your army, and then like that's the thing that your opponent has to charge, and now you're just -2 to charge it. Like, you 11 inch charges off of Deep Strike. Never, ever, ever declare a split charge against Tau into infantry and battle suits, because they can pop both and just make your charge impossible. Like, this is the thing that someone's going to do, and it's going to feel awful the first couple times it happens to people. You're going to get like a character 5 inches away from like two things. You're like, oh, just go to both, and your opponent's just going to be like, or you could stay where you are and do nothing and feel bad about it.
And then on the next shooting phase, you're going to get got.
Yeah.
Absolutely eradicated.
Yeah. So let's let's go over the two lists. So we each kind of have a list written up. I really like Jack's list, and I hope it's good. I have written toxic nonsense, but let's start off in the world of sunshine and rainbows with the list that Jack has brought to us.
Okay. I do think it's notable to point out just before we get started that we kind of had a bit of difficulty writing this list because there are just so many options now.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of stuff to digest in this codex, and I'm really looking forward to sinking my teeth into it. Okay, onto the list. So we start off with Fireside Enclaves. We have a battalion and a patrol detachment. We have Farsight. We have one Cadre Fireblade who's taking the Engram Neurochip for CP refund. We have a Cold Star Commander. He is taking a Flamer that's upgraded into the Thermoneutronic Projector. He has a Fusion Blaster, a Plasma Rifle, and a Shield Generator. Did we forget to put the Onager Gauntlet on this guy?
He's got the Onager Gauntlet.
He's got the Onager Gauntlet, yeah. So this is one variation of the dreaded Tau melee commander. He gets up there with Farsight, he punches things, it's great.
Yeah, he has 4 attacks at 12 neg 4/3 and D6 plus 2 attacks at 4 neg 2/2 in melee, and they all reroll all hits and wins.
Yep. As worded right now, the Thermoneutronic Projector is kind of weird because it no longer auto hits after it's been upgraded. It's probably going to get FAQ'd.
Yeah.
There's a Quad Fusion Enforcer Commander with Stim Injectors in the Fireside Enclave Warlord trait.
Stim
Injectors are
wild. Once per game, for 1 turn, you have a 4-up Feel No Pain, and Enforcer suits are
-1 damage.
Yeah,
nice.
with 2-up saves and 7 wounds. So good luck killing him.
Good luck. A little less exciting after that. Generic Crisis Commander with 2 Fusion, 2 Plasma. It's very good firepower. It's pretty reliable firepower in Farsight Enclaves.
So what Jack's saying is that any of his characters can pick up any tank in the game very, very easily.
Pretty much.
For the rest of his list is full of unbelievable 1 damage weapons.
So we start things off with the spicy 4 Breacher teams. These are at 85 points each. They are pretty cheap and they are very effective. There are 3 strike teams with smart missile system turrets backing them up. There are 4 Devilfish to go around. These are probably loading up the 4 Breachers and just charging at your opponent, as discussed earlier. And then we have 2 Skyrays to back them up. Gets you the little bit of marker light support you need and very reliable long-range fire.
Yep. And this is going to be a theme you're going to see with Fireside Enclave lists. They just don't need that many marker lights because everyone within 12 just like generates their own. And like the army is unbelievably fast. I can't believe the speed that comes out of this army. Like anything with the jetpack moves 10 inches. It can all advance and shoot. The strats for auto advancing 6. Things in transports, like the transports can move like up to 20 inches and then just disgorge their dudes. And the dudes can advance and shoot. Like legitimately, there are Tau infantry models that are going to feel like jet planes when you first play against them. Like if you put a character in the wrong place, it's not outside of the realm of possibility that like Tau infantry end up behind that character and killing him. Like just just be careful. Like it could really happen. Like they actually move 30 inches plus whatever they roll in the advance before they start shooting.
So Chris, you were worried about the static gun line. I'm pretty sure it's gone.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like that. I mean, like it still sounds like the shooting phase is going to be horrible for any opponent, but at least it'll be a little bit more interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And as we mentioned, there's a lot of ways to get extra stats and bonuses on these little infantry teams: extra AP, rapid fire at max range, so on and so forth.
Yep, for sure.
Secondaries you're taking with this army.
You cannot stop this from taking Rod. Very conveniently, the 3 commanders who are not So the all the commanders who aren't Farsight are eligible for While We Stand We Fight.
It's a very neat trick where they just cost 1,000,000 points.
Yeah, this does mean that the melee guy doesn't always get to melee, but like having that as a good option is always good. Yeah, like I said, it's literally impossible to stop it from rotting, and then it's going to engage once. So even if your opponent gives up literally nothing, you have a very strong game plan of just like areas I take every game. I think this is very good. This is like, it's sweet. It's kind of take all comers e. It's very good at playing the mission. Tons and tons and tons of obstacle bodies. And it's also a unique archetype. Like, we haven't seen Town Infantry do a thing, and that's in a while. And that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Also,
Breachers are strength 6 when they get in close range, which is wild. Like, strength 6, AP 3, AP 4 sometimes when you spend strats. Like, rerolling all wound rolls sometimes. Rerolling all wound rolls of 1 and then another wound roll. Exemplar of Calion, you reroll all wound rolls sometimes.
Yeah, the stratagem to
unbelievably hard.
The stratagem to go to max range with your improved shots is gone, but I think they're just so fast now that just doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. All right. So I have as you probably know, Chris, I have a list. The tile list I usually play.
Yeah.
He has a type.
Yeah, the hammer, as many have called it. I have the hammer out of the new Cow Codex. I have gone the opposite way of Jack. I have decided that infantry are for suckers, and I would prefer just to shoot at my opponent all the time from great distances. So, we are doing all healthy tau lists start. It's a single spearhead with a Supreme Command Detachment. So, Supreme Commander, Shadowstone. She's great. She gives 4 rerolls. It's nonsense. Our HQs are Long Strike with Smart Missile Systems and 2 Seeker Missiles. And an Ethereal. The Ethereal's Warlord Traits is 3 Unity Devastation, and he's got the Relic Stave. So 3 Unity Devastation is the 6 to wound or extra armor penetration, and the Relic Ethereal Stave is that rather than doing 1 chant on a 3, you do 2 chants on a 2. And his 2 chants are the 5-Out Feel of Pain and the extra command. For elites, we have a Fireside Marksman. His Warlord trait is Exemplar of Calion. So that's you pick a unit within 9, they reroll wounds within 12 inches, except that we're Taucept, so he can actually throw that a foot away from himself. He also has Ortoon's Lantern, which is when he fires his Markalite, rather than rolling 1d6, he rolls 5. So he just stacks up Markalites in a single target. I like Fireside Marksman only for this exact loadout. Like, you're going to put a Warlord trait on them that buffs something, and then you're going to take the Lantern, because you can only target them with the closest model or within 12. Generally speaking, I'm not like particularly impressed with them, but I needed another place to put Warlord traits. I'm bringing 2 Crisis Bodyguard units. They have 4 frag projectors, and then or each has 2 frag projectors, and then the system that their 6 to hit against units of 6 or more models explode. Frag projectors, again, D6 shots with blast and 4 neg-1-1. So this means against units of 11 or more models, that squad makes 24 attacks with 6 to hit double hitting. And they don't need to see them. The main point of this unit is that they bodyguard for Long Strike. When that abuse gets fixed, they'll probably get pulled from the list. Actually, they'll definitely get pulled from the list. Like, they'll just become stealth suits, because I just think it'd be an infantry thing that can like go do actions or something like that. Now we have our heavy supports. 1 Hammerhead with 2 Smart Missile Systems, 1 Skyray with 2 Smart Missile Systems, 9 Broadsides, all with rail rifles, and 5 shield drones with railguns, smart missile systems. And that is the list. It makes 96 plus, 9-6 plus 4d6 attacks per turn that do not need to see you. All of these attacks have armor penetration. The 96 attacks all auto wound on 6s to hit. There's basically everything's reeling 1s all the time, because Shadowstone's got the 12-inch pie plate. There are 11 railguns for a total of 20 railgun attacks per turn, 2 of which ignore invulnerable saves. With also the Skyray. There's, I think, and then also somehow it just feels like there's enough stuff moving around with the bodyguards, and the Skyray and they're still just like kind of like move around and like grab objectives and such. I'm playing the vast majority of the game from my deployment zone, and my plan is to just shoot my opponent to death. this is not healthy, but I think that the amount of firepower that is available in the new Tau Codex is more than it's ever been. And my current 8th edition Tau list is just relying on tabling people. And I think the 9th edition Tau Codex is going to do it even better. Yeah, I'm not like thrilled that this is potentially the best way to play Tau. But I'm gonna play this list. Like I've always been in love with Tau. I've always been in love with broadsides, and I think 9 broadsides with railguns is just absurdly pushed. If the meta shifts around, things get more swarmy. Missile sides might come back. But honestly, with the new mortal wound mechanic, like the railguns are not significantly worse at killing stuff than missiles. They're worse. They kill half as many models, but there's so much in like single damage shots from this list too, with all the SMS from the broadsides and all the tanks. It's gonna be like a little extreme. I might need to cut a couple things, like play like some stuff that like goes out and grabs objectives. Right now, I just have like my bodyguard unit, and the tanks can like kind of walk around and do stuff, and everything else is just like broadsides sit on objectives. But even then, the broadsides aren't slow. They move 5 inches and they advance D6. They can advance and shoot at full ballista skill. They can shoot new actions because of the ethereal. So like I still just like, even though like I said, I don't have that much stuff to like do actions and stuff, like I can just have broadsides like do actions and shoot. Like I can raise banners my objectives without like losing stuff. I can have the ethereal raise one and have a unit of broadsides raise the other. And have the bodyguards raise the third. I can in games where my opponent's like doesn't have stuff that's like really threatening long strike, I can just put the bodyguards in deep strike. And they can now they can't do like the actions anymore, but they can like certainly come around behind my opponent, charge things, threaten to be like a bully unit to mess up any sort of indirect fire that they've got going on. Like there's just enough going on. And also of note, as of now, there's no rule that says like drones don't count for models in terms of actions. They don't count for a lot of things, but as of now, they do count for your units for actions. So like I could see a world where you play like 2-man bodyguard squads with like 3 gun drones in them, and like that, or 4 gun drones in them, and like that unit is eligible to rod because it's 6 guys. It can't fail rod. And that's kind of interesting too, because that's not like a lot of points to find. That's honestly just like moving. I could probably just like move some shield drones onto that squad. I think this list is completely disgusting. I really liked the way Jack's list played. I got to see a list similar to it get tested. We played a bunch of crisis suits, and we decided that the crisis suits were cool, and we were in love with the infantry. The infantry just felt amazing. So we kind of just went with like all infantry and commanders for the list that we presented here. Now, this isn't to say that we think crisis suits are bad, but like I've run some math. In terms of anti-tank stuff, crisis suits are just put to shame in terms of all the direct fire that like broadsides and commanders and hammerheads can put out and skyrays. So it's really just like anti-infantry firepower, like flamethrowers and burst cannons, and the current meta like isn't asking for that much of that. Like yeah, AdMech certainly has like a big infantry build, but there's a lot of like always counts as in cover and like 3-up armor that like the crisis suits just like aren't getting through with their anti-infantry stuff, whereas like the broadside anti-infantry stuff is hitting those units really hard. So yeah, I think this is where I'm starting with Tau, and it's gross, and I'm kind of in love with it. I love broadsides. I can't believe how amazingly pushed they got with this codex. I would not be shocked to see several things in the Tau codex nerfed. In terms of power level wise, usually at the end of every codex review, Jack, we talk a little bit where we think the codex is in terms of power.
Okay.
So I think there are some very fair builds. Like I think the build that you proposed, I wouldn't be shocked if it doesn't change very much. Maybe it turns out like crisis suits, like that many breachers going down your opponent's throat that fast is like a little bit too much. Maybe the 3 guys becomes 2. Maybe it goes up command points. Maybe strike teams are like 5 points under cost or something like that. But honestly, I think the list that you propose like probably stays the same.
Yeah, I think so too.
I would not be shocked if in 6 months from now, broadsides do not have the core keyword.
No, I wouldn't be shocked with that either. That or they just go up in points. Maybe both.
I don't think both. Maybe both. Well, happened right? Like it happened to AdMech, and like their walkers are still playable.
Exactly.
Like if you compare a broadside to a chicken walker, like It doesn't look good for the chicken walkers, and that's terrifying.
How much are they running at right now?
95?
Hmm.
Now, they hit on 2s. So that is a little heavy lifting for them. But like broadsides are hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s most of the time. So, and with free rerolls from Tau Sept, and the chicken walkers have free rerolls from. It kind of evens out there. But then like they also have the twin SMS systems, which is like
Right, exactly. And they have some other going there if you don't want the SMS for some reason.
Yeah, and we're way more durable. Like chicken walkers are 6 wounds with a 5 up or 6 up invulnerable save, and like we
broadsides get touch a butch and be 1 up. You can be talented and have 1 up all the time.
Yeah, 8 wounds. Like it's really extreme. I think that Hammerheads, while the internet is losing their mind over them, are probably not going to see any changes. I think Hammerheads are like just actually fine where they are.
No, that's true. They probably are fine.
So in terms of power level, I think this book is very good. I would not be shocked to see Tau starting to creep its way into the top tables, especially given the current meta of like Thick City, probably Custodes, and like Crusher Stampede. Like Tau have a real game into all of those things. Crusher Stampede not being able to hide the higher duels means that they're just going to lose every game that they go second against Tau. Like that's not actually an exaggeration. Like you're just gonna lose all your higher duels. Like this list easily kills 3 higher duels if I go first. And that's like, absurd. Like higher duels are a very durable unit, and we're just like picking them up like they're nothing.
Yeah, it's really and I'm now eagerly waiting the.
Yeah, like
I'm also excited for that codex.
Yeah, Jack's another Tyrion player, so we may have him back for that one too. So those are his sort of his 2 armies he bounces back and forth between. So Chris, I know we've sort of been 2 Chow guys, yelling at each other the whole time. You got any questions for us or comments for we finish up with this faction?
I hate your list.
Yeah,
what else is new? It's real.
I've floated that list to a couple teammates, and the only comments I've received back are, "I don't want to play against that," and "This is disgusting."
This is toxic.
Sounds like code talk for this is good.
Oh yeah, it is very good. We have a team event coming up. It's like 3-man teams. So it's like the 5-man team format, but just 3 people. And I'm going to do my best to get I don't know if I'm playing our Chow list. I think I actually have a teammate who's going to play the Chow list, and I'm going to play Thousand Suns. But I'm going to do my very best to get our Chow list to look as close to this pile as I can, because my goodness.
Yeah, I really like this codex. I really like the codexes that GW has been putting, like balance issues like aside. They've just been very much in line with how these factions are supposed to play, like thematically, lore-wise, fluff-wise.
Very much so.
And it's, it's just a hell of a lot of fun. There's something in every codex where people have been very excited about, and they're like, yes, this is exactly how I read it, like in this one book.
Yeah, this Tau Codex feels a lot more like Tau than the previous one. You have basically no incentive to be a single ball. You're very good at moving around and shooting. You are not completely screwed when you get touched in combat, because the way the old Codex worked, it was very hard to touch you in combat because of all the Overwatch nonsense.
But once you
did, the game falls apart. And now it's like, actually just like spread out. If things get touched in combat, they can still like kind of fight for themselves. Their efficiency goes down, but it's not like you lose the game instantly.
Yeah, and there, as stated, there's a lot of builds in this codex, I think.
Oh, 100%. So Chris, you have Captain Con next weekend, right?
I do, and I am bringing my Crusher Stampede that I practice games with. I should probably play a couple more practice games this week.
If you would like, I can certainly meet you at your place to get some practice games in. I will not bring the new chalice, as that is not going to be featured at the new at Captain Con. And so I think next week we're going to kind of reverse the roles a bit. I will sit quietly and listen to you as you talk about your Captain Con games.
Yes, I will. I will be trying my best to take notes during games. I always do well, like after the first match and like writing things down and like taking pictures, and then like after that it's just all down. It's just worse and worse.
Excellent. All right, so next week when you join us, guys, you will hear about Chris's Captain Con adventures.
I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, Chris, I need you to win this event. That way, Captain Con can just be the 3d6 charge podcast GT.
We can touch
be
our
the
swords
forever
together.
defenders of it. You get this one. We'll get Kevin to win next year. It'd be great.
Yeah. I really got to get those practice games in. But I mean, I think Crusher Stampede going into it is.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So yeah, thanks everybody for listening. I know I didn't talk too much this episode. I'm really just trying to soak in all the POW knowledge here so that I can.
There's a lot to soak in.
Yeah.
This book is very deep.
Yeah, pretty deep book. I like it a lot, and it honestly it reminds me of a lot of like my first army. So the first army I ever had was actually Tau. This was back when I was like 12 years old, and Attack of the Clones had come up, and I thought like the transports looked super cool, like the clone trooper ones. I know I said army, but really I had like 10 fire warriors and a couple of battle suits because I was 12 years old. Afford anything else? And allow. Yeah, it's really satisfying to see Tau kind of get back to that style.
For sure.
That being said, thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back next week. I'll talk about my experience at Captain Con. Hopefully, I'll have a shiny sword to wave around. Yeah, until then, roll any ones, everybody.